So hopefully you guys enjoyed this portion of today's video breakdown. I wanted to bring all of this research to everybody's attention. I know that you guys don't have as much time to do this type of research as some of us do in this community. So bringing this to your attention just kind of opens the door for you to see how serious Canton Network is and just how real it is underneath the hood. All right, part two involves some more Canton headlines that have recently come about, just showing that Canton is participating and partnering with some of the biggest regulated players in the game. So I posted this to you guys just the other day where I said, this part matters more than the headline. An FCA regulated benchmark administrator and institutional data provider has chosen Canton Network. When regulated FX pricing, licensing controls, and authoritative market data move on chain, they move where governance, privacy, and compliance already exists. That choice speaks louder than any marketing ever could. And so if we come over here to this post directly from Keiko, Keiko said just 3 days ago, and New Change FX announced a strategic collaboration to bring high quality regulated FX data to the Canton Network. We know that foreign exchange markets are one of the biggest markets in the world globally, and now it's coming to Canton Network. New Change's FX independent benchmark, FX spot, and FX forward rates will be made available to Canton applications with full IP protections, licensing controls, and secure access. The deployment uses Keiko's data on-ramp facility, which allows data providers to distribute their data on-chain while remaining the authoritative source, enabling tokenized product issuers on Canton confidentially building products using reliable FX benchmarks. Then if you click here, read the full article, the key highlight here is it mentions that these institutions operating on Canton can now rely on transparent and trusted FX pricing that is consistent with the standards used across global financial markets. And this was said directly by the chief commercial officer at New Change FX. Now, if we come over back to the highlights here, you can see it says Keiko, the global leader in institutional digital asset marketing data and infrastructure, and New Change FX. It says here, the FCA regulated global leader in independent FX benchmark. I'll repeat that again. New Change FX, or NCFX as their ticker symbol, is the FCA regulated global leader in independent FCX benchmark rates. And they're now bringing FX data to the Canton Network. If you come over here, it says regulated and independent FX benchmarks are coming to the Canton Network. Institutions operating on Canton can now rely on transparent and trusted FX pricing consistent with standards used across global financial markets. And then here again, it just talks about how the methodology is in full regulatory compliance and that NCFX is supervised by the UK Financial Conduct Authority, right? So this just gave me more confidence that this platform is choosing to do this in participation with Canton Network, and they're regulated by the FCA, which just gives me ever more confidence that Canton Network is falling in line with regulatory compliance, which was the kind of idea behind this post. Screw the headline at the end of the day. I mean, yeah, that's important, but the fact that regulated players in traditional finance like the FX markets are choosing Canton Network speaks much more loudly than any headline ever could. So that was very interesting to me. Now, coming over here to this notion of we are falling out of this era or migrating out of this era of institutions sitting on the sidelines is no longer going to be a thing. And institutions that do continue to sit on the sidelines risk falling behind. So take that into consideration as a retail investor that's just now learning about all these things, learning about passive income earning assets, learning about new wallets that might pop up, learning about new blockchains that have been around for 10 plus years, but you might have never heard about them. Well, now is the time to really start to dig in, especially if you're a part of this community, and really start to open up some of the research, because we are at that tipping point, this moment where institutions are not about to have a choice anymore to sit idle. And once regulations are clear, and that is coming very soon, I do have a firm belief that we're about to see an adoption phase in the digital asset ecosystem, the likes that we've never seen before over the past 17 years. And you do not want to be a participant in this market after that phase, in my personal opinion. Again, not financial advice. Institutions aren't really being given a choice anymore to just sit sidelined, sit idle, and do nothing. They need to make a decision on whether they're going to adopt or get left behind. And so don't take that from me. This was posted on Ripple in their YouTube page 3 days ago, and this is coming from Lauren Weymouth. I believe she's a board of directors at Ripple, and she is also a legal expert, if I'm not mistaken, she's sitting with the professional Professor Michelle Neitz of the University of San Francisco Center of Law. And Lauren Weymouth, I'm pretty sure she sits on the board of Ripple, right? So just listen to what she says here about these institutions no longer, sitting idle is no longer an option. And this is again from just a couple days ago.
I was once at a conference, it was pre-pandemic, 2018 maybe, on blockchain and crypto. And I sat next to someone from a large bank that you have heard of. I will not say which bank it was. And they were interested in getting into the blockchain space. And when I asked her why, her answer was, I don't actually know. I think we just don't want to get left out. And so I always look at things with that sort of insider perspective of, why is a traditional company getting into this space? Is it because they don't want to be left out, or is it because they actually see the potential for innovation to serve their customers? Now, I will say, I think we're seeing institutional adoption from traditional finance. So, for example, Santander, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton, these traditional financial services companies are using blockchain and tokenization to serve their customers. That angle on it, I think, is going to encourage more cooperation, because now it's not just about getting left out. It's also our customers will now demand this. We need to be ready.
Yeah. So, and beyond FOMO, it's really helping to mainstream this
exactly
as well.
Right. So that was a huge just verbal confirmation from this lady with obviously, of course, active and valid credentials. Just look her up on LinkedIn, Lauren Weymouth. She has a huge rap sheet on her LinkedIn profile. But that leads me over to here, because this in the Digital Asset Summit 2025 from London, this dude, and this is going to full circle, this guy from Lloyd's Bank goes on to talk about connecting your Lloyd's bank account to the Canton network and how Canton network is the best technology. And this will all full circle here in just a second in regards to the Ripple BNY announcement and whatnot. But just check this out. Okay, so at 9 minutes and 45 seconds, listen to what he says here.
Are probably more adventurous or open to trying new things, and some that are not ready to be there. Like, how do you think about managing that cross set, and how do you get people to have you seen that shift at all, I guess, over the past year or so?
Yeah, so all the customer feedback is actually that conversation, Pete, on automating margining and sort of 24/7 settlement and reducing my operational costs. They're brilliant, but privacy is key. So Canton is basically the first place that Lloyd's is building on as a result of that customer feedback. But then building on that customer feedback is I need a settlement instrument, one that I can trust, backed by years and years of experience and regulation. So we're building tokenized deposits for them. And you talk about that interoperability between old and new. You'll be able to debit your bank account at Lloyd's and credit a token on the Canton blockchain, just in the same way that you can move money from your savings account to your current account. There's nothing harder or more difficult than that. And now all of a sudden, they've got some tokenized deposits that they can go and use in trades to do interest rate derivatives or repos or cash trades.
On TradeWeb.
On TradeWeb, yeah. You took my punchline away. Exactly. And part of that foundation is that interoperable money in a wallet ecosystem. So effectively having your wallet next to your bank account, and eventually these customers won't really see a difference. And it's just the banks will migrate to offering a better product, which is a wallet, with all the same security that you'd expect, being run by Lloyd's, all the access, the login, the key security, it's all confidential, secure in the way you'd expect. And that doesn't make it scary. It's not crypto now. It's just TradFi doing things better. Mm-hmm. And that way, we can try and make sure that London, I think, is sort of the market share for derivatives is about 50%. You'll know this better than me, Serene. We do about $4.3 trillion of derivatives trading in interest rates in this city every year. We're only going to keep that market share if we use the latest and best technology. And I think everyone in this room knows that this is the best technology for reducing that risk and making sure that we stay in the leading role in that space.
Yeah, if I
So he talks about how in the future, you're going to be able to connect your Lloyd's bank account to the Canton network and make digital asset transfers. And then mentions everyone in this room knows that we're going to need to choose the best technology. And he's sitting on stage with LLOYDS from Canton Network talking about this. I'm going to play some more video clips that are going to blow your mind from this summit. But so again, always just keep in the back of your mind what the lady from Ripple said about how banks can no longer sit idle when we come back to this particular video breakdown. So now real fast, since we're on the topic and we shared a video clip from a lady from Ripple, we can see the community is all discombobulated and completely misunderstanding this whole entire announcement from BNY Mellon, in my personal opinion. It seems like every single person that has posted about this is making it seem like Ripple is being the infrastructure provider or like the foundational layer for this announcement, right? So looking at this announcement, it says $50 trillion asset management BNY Mellon has launched tokenized deposits for institutions with Ripple Prime as an early adopter. We come back over here. This guy here, Pampius, I don't know this guy. He said, listen closely. This is one of the most biggest moments that barely makes any noise, but changes everything underneath. BNY Mellon has entered tokenized cash with Ripple. So I wrote a full entire thread researching this in detail to make sure that the community is not confused by this announcement and that this entire infrastructure actually sits on Canton. Okay, so check this out. One thing people keep missing in this space is that the builders are not fighting each other. So I'm not sitting here saying that Ripple or Canton is better than one another. I'm actually saying that LLOYDS is not arguing with Ripple and Ripple is not arguing with Canton Network. BNY is not picking sides and playing tribal games. They are building. While Twitter has been arguing about chains and whether this runs on Canton, whether this runs on Ripple, or whatever the case may be, these teams are wiring together the plumbing of the next financial system. There has been confusion circulating around BNY Mellon's tokenized deposits and digital asset platform, specifically around whether it is being built on Ripple or the XRPL. The documentation, let me mute you guys real quick. Some background noise. The documentation, public statements, and partner announcements make the structure very clear. BNY is not building its digital asset platform on Ripple or the XRPL. Ripple is an early adopter and client of BNY's platform. BNY's platform is what we need to pay attention to because what and who helped build BNY's platform. Okay, that's the important part. So the underlying institutional blockchain infrastructure is being built with Goldman Sachs and digital asset on the Canton network. So let's walk through this step by step using direct quotes from the direct source material. What BNY actually launched. BNY has officially launched a tokenized deposit service for institutional clients. From BNY's own statement, it says, BNY expands digital cash capabilities by enabling the on-chain mirrored representation of client deposit balances on its digital asset platform via tokenized deposits. I want you guys to pay attention to this three-prong vocab word here. Digital asset platform. Okay, this is what we need to be mindful of. This is what we need to focus on. Who and what is this being built on, this digital assets platform? It runs right now on BNY's own private permission blockchain infrastructure. Client balances remain recorded on BNY's traditional banking system for regulatory integrity. And this is from BNY's platform documentation. It says, this capability operates on BNY's private permission blockchain and is governed by the company's established risk compliance and control frameworks. Clients' balances continue to be recorded on BNY's traditional system to maintain regulatory and reporting integrity. As we continue, it says, this is not a public blockchain deployment. This is regulated financial infrastructure. Now, who built the infrastructure? BNY did not build this alone. The core tokenization and blockchain layer is built with Goldman Sachs asset platform, GSDAP, which itself runs natively on the Canton network, which is developed by Digital Asset. Here it says directly from the Canton network website. Goldman Sachs Digital Asset Platform, or GSDAP, is natively on Canton network, providing marketing leading tokenization services for regulated financial markets. This is it right here. From the official Canton announcement, here it says, BNY and Goldman Sachs launched tokenized money market funds. The combined solution will leverage GSDAP built on Canton network to record money market or MMFs, money market funds, ownership, advancing tokenization, utility, and transferability. From Goldman Sachs' own platform documentation, it says mere tokens of MMF shares are created utilizing GSDAP, an award-winning technology platform developed by Goldman Sachs Digital Asset. And BNY will employ blockchain technology developed by Goldman Sachs to maintain a record of customers' ownership of select money market funds. So here you can see it says right here, BNY will employ the blockchain technology that is developed by Goldman Sachs to maintain a record of customers' ownership of select money market funds. And it says right here that this is going to be mirrored and recorded tokenization utilizing the GSDAP. Utilizing, it says right here again, utilizing GSDAP. And we've already confirmed who is GSDAP built on. Y'all. It's built on the Canton network. Okay? This is mind-blowing. Right? This is crazy stuff. So as we continue, let's progress. Here it says how it works. For phase 1, clients and fund companies will interact with Liquidity Direct in the manner that they do today, also to invest and or redeem tokenized share classes via Liquidity Direct, which will have mirrored copies on the blockchain via the GSDAP. Liquidity Direct's blockchain connectivity layer managed by BNY's Digital Asset Platform, or BNY DAP, consumes mirrored information from Liquidity Direct and provides that through BNY DAP onto the blockchain platform that can be internal or from a third party. In phase 1, this will be a private permission third-party blockchain platform, the GSDAP. So this confirms that this digital asset platform right here, BNY's digital asset platform, is coming from GSDAP, right? Which we've already confirmed is being built on the Canton network. Okay. As we continue, thread 2. So where does Ripple fit into this? So that way nobody's confused, because it seems like, again, a lot of people are confused on where Ripple actually fits into this, because Ripple is just a customer. That's it. So Ripple is not building BNY's platform. Ripple is not providing the blockchain, and Ripple is not running the settlement layer. Ripple is nothing but an early adopter and client of BNY's platform. This is coming directly from Ripple's own post. Here you can see this is a screenshot from Ripple, and it says, today our partners at BNY Global launched tokenized deposit services for institutional clients, bringing the promise of digital assets directly into the banking system, with Ripple Prime as an early adopter. Ripple explicitly says that BNY launched the platform and that Ripple Prime is an early adopter of it. This is coming from Noel Kimmel, the president of Ripple Prime. It says here, we are proud to expand our long-standing strategic collaboration now as an early adopter of BNY's tokenized deposit services through its digital asset platform. So again, BNY's digital asset platform. And who's using this? Ripple is, for cash flow management and liquidity optimization. So again, Ripple is using BNY's platform, which we've already confirmed is utilizing GS, right? Goldman Sachs, DAP, which we know is built on Canton network, okay? And Ripple is using it for cash flow management, liquidity optimization, and institutional treasury operations. Ripple is a customer, not a builder. What is the Canton network's role? Canton is the institutional blockchain layer enabling privacy, interoperability, and real-time settlement. And if you go back to what the guy said here in this video from Lloyd's Bank, he particularly talks about how Canton Network is the best technology that provides all those things. I already played that video clip for you guys, right? Coming back to this to finish it. From Digital Asset CEO Yuval Ruse himself. It says, this direction aligns closely with our strategy for the Canton Network, supporting privacy-enabled on-chain infrastructure and solutions that help regulated institutions coordinate and transact in real time while maintaining the controls, governance, and trust that underpin the global financial markets. From the Canton Network's official page, it says, Goldman Sachs and BNY have announced the ability to tokenize the $7.1 trillion money market industry on Canton. BNY clients, and who do we know is a BNY client? Ripple, says right here, Ripple is using BNY's platform. So BNY clients can now access tokenized money market funds with ownership records on GSDAP. And that is what? Built on the Canton Network. All right. So let's get into the architecture. Here's another thing here. It says, Matthew Dermott, global head of digital assets at Goldman Sachs, says, our long-standing relationship with digital assets stems from a deep conviction in the strength of their technology. So this is from a guy from Goldman Sachs is mentioning digital asset, right? The builder of Canton Network, and the deep conviction in their technology. And it says, which continues to be the foundation to the development and ongoing success of GSDAP. We will continue to support them as a critical player in the institutional digital asset ecosystem. So this is just more confirmation that Canton, right here, is the underlying technology of the GSDAP system from Goldman Sachs, right? So the architecture in plain English. BNY's digital asset stack looks like this. BNY digital asset platform, private permission blockchain, tokenized deposits, tokenized money market funds, programmable cash, and collateral and margin workflows. Powered by Goldman Sachs digital asset platform, or the GSDAP, that is built on the Canton Network by Digital Asset and is used by Ripple Prime as an early adopter, and the likes of Anchorage Digital, Citadel Securities, Galaxy, ICE, Invesco, WisdomTree, Paxos, Stone, DRW, Talos, Zero Hash, Securitize, and many others. So BNY is building real financial infrastructure for an always-on financial system, as Caroline Wienberg, Chief Product and Innovation Officer at BNY, stated. The tokenized deposits provide us with the opportunity to extend our trusted bank deposits onto digital rails, enabling clients to operate with greater speed across collateral, margin, and payments with the framework built for scale, resilience, and regulatory alignment. This is not a crypto experimentation. This is regulated market infrastructure, and as Yuval Ruse concluded, this is bringing deposit balances on-chain and can make asset mobilization more efficient and unlock liquidity across key workflows. So my goal in this post was to show people that this is actually being built with Canton Network as the underlying infrastructure, right? And that Ripple is actually just a user and a customer of BNY. BNY's digital asset platform is using and powered by GSDAP. GSDAP sits on the Canton Network, right? So you'll have those people in the comments that are like, oh, that's not true, which is why I facilitated all the screenshots and all of the research, right? That anybody can go and do to see that July 23rd, 2025, the combined solution will leverage GSDAP. It says right here, BNY and Goldman Sachs launched tokenized money market funds. The combined solution will leverage GSDAP built on Canton, right? So I just thought that was very interesting to kind of clear that air there. And this is not some competition saying that Ripple or XRPL or Canton Network is better. It's just to show that Canton Network is actually the one that sits underneath of all this, right? As we continue, Glenn Hanley. Who is Glenn Hanley and why is his post on LinkedIn even important? Once I read this to you guys, we go over to his LinkedIn profile. You can see his valid credentials. He spent over 34 years in the game. He's currently the managing consultant for SEC Fin Solutions. He has previous experience at HSBC. He was a director at Commerce Bank. He was an associate director at Barclays, and the list goes on, right? So this guy has some valid credentials in the space, and look what he just put out 3 hours ago. Lloyd's just bought a gilt using tokenized deposits on a public blockchain with atomic settlement. This isn't a pilot. These are production rails. So what happened? Lloyd's Bank corporate markets use tokenized deposits issued directly on the Canton network to acquire a tokenized UK government gilt from FXRX. True atomic DVP, assets and payment moved simultaneously, and zero principal risk. Then FXRX redeemed the deposits back into the traditional banking system seamlessly and circularity. Now, do you guys remember in that clip that I played just for you guys, he mentioned that Lloyd's Bank will be able to connect bank accounts to the Canton network. And now in real time, this is happening. He said, Glenn, 35 years of watching this industry, and this is the moment that it all stopped being theoretical. So, considering everything else that we've seen in this space up until this point, and this guy with 35 years of banking behind his belt is saying that this is now the moment that it all stops being theoretical, I think that we should be paying attention to this, right? Well done to Peter Left and all involved. Remember, Peter Left, right here, Peter Left is that same guy sitting here on stage, Peter Left, from October 14th, 2025, sitting on stage with who? Yuval Ruse, right? From Digital Asset. So why this matters? Tokenized deposits retain FCSC's protection. Stablecoins don't. They're interest bearing. Most stablecoins aren't. They preserve the singleness of money, no DPEG risk, and no fragmented liquidity. In translation, this is commercial bank money in a new form factor with the same regulatory wrapper but significantly better plumbing. Tokenized deposits, tokenized gilts, tokenized money market funds, digital gilts, and sovereign bonds. The infrastructure is live. The regulatory sandbox is open. The collateral mobility use case is proven. Then it says here, banks hesitating for more clarity, risk being outmaneuvered as competitors build the rails. Then down here he says, the wait and see approach now guarantees obsoletes. And if we remember what the Ripple lady said, right, about how banks can no longer sit idle on the sidelines or they risk being left behind. And I just showed you guys how Ripple is utilizing BNY's tokenized platform, and that sits on Canton. Y'all, this is freaking nuts. Okay. Now, if we come back over here, do you guys remember this Intellect EU post from 7 months ago? And it says here, a premier member of the Canton Foundation. So it's talking about the Canton Foundation and how Intellect EU is helping drive the future of institutional finance on the Canton network. And it posted this blog. And in this blog down here, this also coexists with everything that's happening in this Intellect EU post, what was said at the very bottom. I read this in a previous post, so just take a second and listen. Now, what I find interesting is the article in which they posted is actually very interesting. And this is one of those articles that will never reach the mainstream masses. Right here, it mentions the compliant ledger technologies like Canton Network and how they're here to demonstrate disintermediation is coming amongst financial institutions. But down here is where it gets really interesting. It says, and this is again a major announcement, so turn this up. It says, the institutional adoption of distributed ledger technology by organizations like SWIFT and the DTCC, whom and which just recently partnered with Canton Network, shows that the time for cautious experimentation has ended. The next phase of financial evolution will be about operational integration, bringing tokenized assets, on-chain settlement, and programmable finance into the core of banking infrastructure. However, time is a critical factor. The institutions already investing in production-grade blockchain infrastructure are building the foundations for future market success. Those who delay risk finding themselves on the outside of a new financial paradigm, forced to integrate on terms set by others. But for banks, the message could not be clearer. Waiting is no longer a strategy. I repeat, waiting is no longer a strategy. That is a huge confirmation that we are in the right place, ladies and gentlemen. If they're telling banks and financial institutions that waiting is no longer a strategy, then for us as retail investors, what do you think, again, we should mirror? We know right now that we have front-ran financial institutions. So I just found it interesting that this documentation from a couple of months ago, posted in collaboration with Canton Network and Intellect EU, talks about how waiting is no longer a strategy, then this guy here with over 34 years in banking talks about how over the past 35 years, he's been watching this industry and how this collaboration, right, with Lloyd's Bank, Archax, and Canton Network is the moment that all of this stopped being theoretical. And he's talking about how banks hesitating for more clarity risk being outmaneuvered as competitors build the rails, and that the wait and see approach is now guaranteeing obsoletes is just massive. And as we continue to progress, we come back to this October 14th, 2025 panel and listen to what the gentleman Peter Left says about unlocking the technology that Yuval is creating. And he gives a timeline. He says in 12 to 24 months, this integration with Lloyd's Bank and Canton Network is going to be possible and all this stuff, right? So just take a second here and listen, because this timeline was way off because this happened just the other day. So just take a second here and listen.
Place these days. I guess my question for you is, from your perspective, what's different about this moment in time? What's fundamentally new in how the market's operating?
Sure. So maybe if we just pick from the transaction you mentioned, we use the word tokenization a lot. I personally don't like that word because it implies we're creating a new asset class. For the most part, most tokenization projects do exactly that. I think that we talk about the use of these assets as collateral, and in reality, what you really want to have is on-chain securities. You want the securities on the chain to be the same as what we have in TradFi, meaning you are actually holding the legal tender to the asset. So when we did that transaction, the treasuries that were transacted were actual US treasuries held at the DTCC. And to me, that is extremely unique because you can think about what other asset classes exist in the DTCC, and you can get even more excited to where we're going. But putting that aside, I mean, if you just think about eligible collateral globally today, roughly 10 to 15% of it gets used because it doesn't get mobilized very easily. So when you're thinking about large financial institutions, and Peter can comment on that, when you're thinking about just the opportunity to mobilize real collateral, not recreated collateral, 24/7, I think that most treasurers in those companies will say that they see at a minimum a 20% efficiency on their balance sheet. And that, when you start thinking about the implications of that, are monumental. So that's why we're very excited. This is one example of a transaction with Broadridge, for example. We're getting close to 10% of the repo market in the US. So to me, when people ask, are we there yet? It's not are we there yet, it's just how much every year.
Yeah, super exciting. And Peter, are you kind of seeing the same momentum from your perspective? What's exciting to you about what's happening right now?
Yeah, very much so. And this is a common problem for us all, actually, mobilizing collateral. And we sort of rewind a few years back to September 22, that was a problem very close to the London's heart. We had some of the old-fashioned rails got a bit gunked up, shall we say. And Yuval just mentioned sort of that collateral mobility point. And I think, I'll mention now, actually, there's a consultation was issued by the Bank of England about increasing the resilience of the gilt repo market here in the UK back on the 4th of September. I think all of you in this room know the answer to that consultation paper. It is exactly what Yuval just described. We need to create digital instruments working alongside digital transactions, working alongside digital netting agreements, so that we can start to automate those workflows. Because that consultation talks a lot about how we should think about the trade-offs between central clearing and the concentration of risk, but the level of automation that you can get in that process. But that's a lot of counterparty credit risk being concentrated in one place. It's quite useful and helpful to create the diversification of a bilateral ecosystem, but with some of the benefits of clearing. So the gilt repo market's a £1 trillion repo market. Backed by £2.6 trillion of UK sovereign debt. These are big numbers, big amounts of collateral moving around, and if we can automate that then we can have the benefit of bilateral diversified counterparty risk combined with automated margining, higher frequency margining activity. And I think that's the thing that creates the scale adoption. That's how we go from Lloyd's doing an experiment with Aberdeen to use tokenized money market funds and tokenized gilts earlier in the summer to collateralize FX derivatives. That then goes from there to solve that common problem such that in 12, 24 months' time, we're unlocking the technology that Yuval's building.
Yeah.
He's talking about tokenized gilts, and he just mentioned that in 12 to 24 months is when he foresees, and again, this gentleman's coming from Lloyd's Bank, unlocking the technology that Yuval is building. He specifically said that at the very end of his statement just then. Y'all, do you see what just happened? What he just said on stage is going to take 12 to 24 months just happened last week, which is now why I'm seeing why this dude of 35 years in the industry is saying that this is now the moment that it all stopped being theoretical. So huge, major confirmation here that what these people are sitting in saying on stage is taking place and taking shape with their timelines way projected out. 12 to 24 months is a long time away, because if this happened in October of last year, then that means 12 months from then would be October this year. And we're already seeing what he just said on stage take place last week, you guys and gals. That just goes to show the scale and the breadth and the depth of the infrastructure that Canton's already created, where Lloyd's Bank is already comfortable enough to have done this in real time just last week with FX, Canton, and themselves. Now, last but not least, the very last video clip I want to play for you guys is where this guy says, and I'm sorry that the volume isn't loud on this. I've turned it up as much as I could. But he says at 14 minutes and 25 seconds that the foundation for all of this is here, that we just need to now enter into execution mode. And I believe that with this recent announcement of FX and Lloyd's Bank and Canton Network, they have just entered into execution mode. Take a second and listen to what he says here.
So shifting gears slightly, because I think it would be remiss not to hit this topic while we're here in London, and I have Peter here on next to me. I guess, what does it take for the UK to become the home of 24/7 sovereign debt markets where gilts, digital cash, infrastructure all operate on chain? Like, I know we talked a little bit about scale, but we have a lot going on at this very moment in time. Obviously, a number of tenders going on, but what are the kind of key components from your perspective that the market needs to be able to get there?
So I think we've got a common problem to solve. That's the thing that's going to bring us together, but we need a seed planted to help us rally around solving that common problem. And that's the tender from HM Treasury last week. And we can seed that digital capital market on privacy-enabled blockchains as required. So it puts Canton in a good position there. So you get privacy with an ecosystem that can support that digital gilt, or maybe one day digital bonds from the UK banks and large corporates, etc., that can be mobilized more efficiently to solve that collateral problem we talked about back in September 22. So I think that seed, inspired by solving that common problem of sort of improving the way the legacy systems work today, will be that catalyst. And I would also say, I often get told, the UK regulations and the legal framework don't support that yet. And I'm sorry, but basically they do. So we work on a principles-based framework here in the UK, which requires someone to interpret something. So it doesn't say you can or can't do this. It just says, these are the principles, work within the principles. Lloyd's works within the principles. Lloyd's is using digital assets as collateral to offset our regulatory exposure at default already with our trading customers. So the common problem's there, the seed is there, and I'm basically telling you, you can interpret the regs and law framework here in the UK so that you can participate safely. So the foundation's there. We just need to move into execution mode now.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree.
The foundation is there. We just need to move into execution mode now. And I just showed you guys that they have now done that, right? So full circling all this, how multiple different people, including those the likes of Ripple, whom are choosing BNY's digital asset platform that we know underlyingly sits on Canton network. This is just huge confirmation, in my personal opinion, on Canton's role in this blockchain ecosystem as a major player in the years ahead. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this portion of today's video breakdown. I wanted to bring all of this research to everybody's attention. I know that you guys don't have as much time to do this type of research as some of us do in this community. So bringing this to your attention just kind of opens the door for you to see how serious Canton Network is and just how real it is underneath the hood.